Hi everyone, JJ here. Welcome back to this live stream. Something different from the usual. I just realized that I actually put the wrong date on here. It was like August or something, 60 days. So we'll just see how this goes. It's been a while since I've done this actually, and I'm just going to check that it's all working and everything. Wait for people to come online. And I am keen. The reason I'm doing this, I haven't done this for a while, just mix things up. And frankly, I get a little bit bored of doing those, 12, 15-minute kind of episodes daily. So we'll see how this goes. And maybe I'll do this once a week, something like that, mixing it up, as I said. And this one is about the SpaceX IPO. It's the eve. If you're watching this in the US, it's coming up within 24 hours. I'm in New Zealand. It's Friday morning, so this is my Friday, and we will see what happens. I mean, the title of this, the live stream eve, and the biggest market bubble. So the question mark. I've said that this is a bubble, and it's an AI bubble. This is part of the AI bubble, I think. And you'll see this on the screen here. I lifted this from one of the Elon Jellicles, the Tesla pumpers. It is very excited. People are excited. And I did do a post saying, "Are you excited about the SpaceX IPO?" on this like investment board in my local kind of investment forum. And there's a lot of retail interest for sure, but also there's skepticism, which is interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. I have no doubt that there is a lot of hype around, and that it is going to, well, I don't know, prediction, let me know what you think. Part of this, doing this live stream, is, I mean, just doing those, as I said, 12 to 15-minute videos every day. I don't get a lot of interaction except for the comments, and we'll look at the comments on yesterday's video to see what people are saying about it. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Being a live stream, it's not a monologue. I want to talk about, and people are on commenting. Hello to you as people come online here. Now, I'm doing this. I don't really care about how many views it gets, but I will do this regularly if it catches on. And this, it's not really about the views for me or about the money. It's just about what I want to do at this point, what I want to do videos about. I mean, I've been doing this for over 4 years now. As I said, I get a little bit bored doing those 12 to 15 minutes. So interaction is good. Hey everyone. Yay. I'm going to answer some comments, and we'll start with some of the YouTube comments. Oh, that's too small. I wish I could make that bigger. Going to have to pull that in so I can actually read it. My eyesight's not too good, and I do need new glasses. Okay, I'm just reading the comments here. It, as I said, different to a monologue. So, yes, interaction. Hello from North Carolina. Hey there. Yes, I did this. The timing of this, so it's Friday morning for me here. It's 8:30 Friday morning, so I think it's a good time to do this. I know in the US, I did it for set it for New York time, which is, I know it's Thursday afternoon there. In Australia, it's early morning. Look at the audience on YouTube. I get it from Australia, the UK, Canada, US, New Zealand, where I'm from. But New Zealand's, because of the small population's about like 1% or something like that. And it's never going to be above that because of the small population. So, yes, nearly half from the US. So, hi to everybody tuning in there, and Canada as well. I get, a lot of people from Canada, which is great. So, North America there, and UK, but it's really hard with the time zones to kind of get everybody online at the same time. So, that's what's difficult about these live streams, right? But this is a good time, I think, because we're heading into the afternoon in the US. California on the other side's earlier, of course. UK, it's late at night. So I think, yeah, it's so people are, winding down there. I mean, I listen to podcasts when I go to sleep. So, can do that. I time it for about half an hour, and usually it only lasts about 5 minutes. But it's a good way to get to sleep. Yes, people coming online. Sweden, hey there, great. There's a contingent from Sweden and and Europe as well. Obviously, with the different languages, it's a bit difficult, but it's mostly English speaking. But I know that there are a lot of Swedish people and or Scandinavian people who do speak English as well, so that's great. And I had a contingent from Germany as well. I have family in Germany, living in Germany, I know that people do speak English there too. So yes, all right. I see people online, so that's great. Let's get into it. So this graphic, let's start with this graphic. This is pretty incredible to me. I'm wondering if we're going to look back on this IPO here, or this excitement around this IPO of being one of the big bubbles in history. Oh, somebody from the UK there. I- UK in bed with the dog. Is it a well? It's winter here, so you could say it's like a two dog night here. Or in the morning, it's pretty. I had to crank up the heating here in the lounge to feel like it was okay to get in here. Got the winter clothes on, so quite different. Yeah, I'm just reading the comments here. God, I wish I could make that bigger. I have to work how to do that because it's really difficult for me to read that. This software that I'm using, it's small font. But great that people are commenting. Thanks. We're going to read some of the YouTube comments from yesterday's video too. Oh, it gets bigger when I make it bigger. That's good. I wonder why any brokerage apps will have malfunctions and prevent people from buying. Well, I think there's an allocation that's oversubscribed, and that's the norm. They want it to be oversubscribed. That's part of the hype, right? And I've seen people online saying, "Will I get an allocation?" And so the float is pretty small, but they definitely want retail investors in here. There's talk about dumping on retail, pump and dump. We'll get to that as well because it's a big part of it. And Elon says he wants it. He always said he wants retail investors to be included. But is this really dumping on retail and insiders? A liquidity event for insiders who want to sell, and early investors and retail investors haven't had a chance. All right, comments coming in. Good afternoon from Georgia. Hello, Scott. Considering the brokerages are bending over backwards to get retail customers into this, they must be concerned. Still, I don't doubt SpaceX will sell out. There's too much dumb money out there. Well, it is going to be interesting to see the price of it when it executes, when it goes live. Is it going to pump? Is it going to go past this? 1.75 trillion is already massive. Nobody doubts that the valuation is massive. But as I said in the video yesterday, if you haven't seen that already, that people are bending over backwards to justify this valuation and how it could go to 2 trillion, 3 trillion. So it is going to be interesting. And I think this is historic. That's why I want to cover it. I'm not interested myself. I'm not excited about it just from the observation of market events of this bubble. And I think it's a bubble and this is part of it. So I'm interested to see what happens. And I'm not saying that anything will happen in the first day, 2 weeks. I mean, that 2 weeks in, when it gets into the Nasdaq index, and portfolio or retirement funds are going to have to buy it. The S&P 500 has refused to bend the knee. Let's say they bend the knee to Elon on this, but it's still going to happen. So that's expected that there's going to be a bump after 2 weeks, whatever happens in that first 2 weeks. But we'll see. We will see. Okay, this George says Theranos showed that higher net worth investors sue retail investors less likely to. Also, retail investors more likely to buy the hype. I think that's true. There's a lot of FOMO around, and the press, the finance press, is hyping it up. But there's also questions. We're going to get into that. I've got some news lined up. The latest news to have a look at, see what's going on in this final 24 hours before the IPO. It's early morning here. I'm getting caffeinated. I'm almost fully caffeinated. All the institutional shares sold out yesterday. Yes, I mean it's not surprising. IPOs like this, really hyped IPOs, should be oversubscribed. I think it's less oversubscribed than it kind of would be because of the high valuation. Actually, I think it's 4 times oversubscribed. Some of them are way more than that. I could not get an allotment, Scott says. Well, maybe that's a good thing. I mean, the main thing with IPOs like this, well, IPOs that have a lot of FOMO, and if you, I saw, and I heard on a podcast. I didn't read an article where I think it was Animal Spirits podcast. Those guys, if you listen to this, if you're into investing, I mean they do quite a bit of research, and they research IPOs, right? And I think the past, the average of the past IPOs after 6 months, they're down, and it's a huge amount. So there really is no hurry, but the FOMO certainly sets in. And by the way, what I'm saying, none of this is investment advice at all in, in any way. I'm not qualified to give investment advice, but I am a student of bubbles in particular. I've read, books about bubbles going way back in history, hundreds of years of the stock market, and they do rhyme. And this really does, the AI trade, the space trade, the FOMO does seem to be a big thing here, I'd have to say, after, reading the patterns of bubbles over history. The dot com bubble I've talked about, and other people have talked about, and people would say this is not like the dot com bubble. I mean, I lived through it. That was one of my first stock market experiences, the FOMO and hype back then. But I think this is similar. There's massive money involved. Back then, people said, there were companies making no revenue and, high multiples, lots of IPOs. And so this is not like that. There are companies with big revenues. But if you actually dig into the dot com bubble, there were companies making a lot of revenue, like Cisco Systems was the poster child of the dot com bubble, internet infrastructure. And you could say this is about AI infrastructure with all the AI data centers being built, or that video that I did yesterday with Ed Zitron, which we will get into a little bit. I might look at the comments of that. I don't know how long this live stream's going to go for, but we'll see how it goes. I can only talk for so much. I am actually a bit of an introvert, so after a while I kind of burn out, tire myself out listening to myself. But it's great to have interaction here. That's the reason I'm doing this, even if it doesn't get a lot of viewers or views. So I'm grateful to you being here. Now, let's see. If there are any stocks discounted tomorrow, hopefully I can scoop up some value. Face orange biting nails. Face orange biting nails. I guess that's an emoji, but it's coming out as text on here. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm in no rush. As I said, IPOs often just pull back after a certain amount of time, but there's a lot of FOMO and Elon having a lot of clout and the richest person in the world and all that stuff. Okay, so let's get into some of the news about this, the latest news about what's going on here. SpaceX to close above 2 trillion market cap on its debut. Prediction market traders say. Well, this is part of the hype, right? The predictions about what's going to happen, always part of the hype. So this is CNBC, mainstream financial media. So the key points of this: traders on prediction market platform Polymarket think it's likely that SpaceX will rise in its public market debut Friday and see high odds it will close with a market capitalization of more than 2 trillion. Like that would not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, but this is talking about the first day, the second day, the first week, the first month. I mean, let's see what happens after 6 months, right? And don't forget, insiders can start selling out at certain points. Elon Musk he's not planning to sell out, but there's things that he could do. I mean, I saw a video yesterday. One of the things, his shares are locked up right on purpose, but he could borrow money against the SpaceX valuation, which is what he tends to do, and so going more and more, bigger and bigger. Let's see. Hi, great content. Thanks for that. SoftBank recently seen in problem already for involvement with OpenAI. Yes, OpenAI. So this is not just about SpaceX, right? That graphic that I showed, you'll notice here, so the three big IPOs, we've got SpaceX, we've got Anthropic, we've got OpenAI, which I have been making videos about periodically, about these, well, this is what it says, $3 trillion big bets, $3 trillion IPOs. I mean, it is historic, and I do think this is a bubble. And what happens to these companies will be really interesting over the next year or two. bubbles can go on for way longer than anybody thinks. Like that's why I'm not predicting an end to it when it happens. But I do think this is a bubble. There's so many signs of it. It rhymes with history. I mean, people could argue with that. Let me know if you don't think so. I'd love to hear that. I mean, it's one opinion, and I'm not a financial advisor. You got to get your own advice on that, or you make your own decisions. Um, And here too, like, seems like a cartoon that from history, you look back on famous bubbles and see what were they thinking at the time. That's what this the graphic seems like to me. Jobs, growth, fortune. That guy, I guess that's supposed to be Uncle Sam there on the bottom right of that graphic. I mean, really, how many jobs? I guess space industry, you could say over time there's jobs in that, but AI, they're talking about taking away jobs, right? So I don't know about that. um, to the moon, SpaceX going to the moon, building things on the moon. And Steve Eisman from The Big Short, of Big Short fame, was on CNBC. We'll have a look at that, where he was laughing at, well, not laughing, just saying that the S1, the prospectus for SpaceX, talking about asteroid mining and just, it's like Elon's sci-fi fantasy, putting it all in there, and people in a heightened state think, wow, wow, but how long is this really going to take? Is it even possible? It's like he's put every sci-fi fantasy in there, it seems to me. Uh, People are saying no lag. No lag in chat, just the video has stopped working. Oh, no, really? Okay, let me see this. I might change maybe I can change um, let me see if I can change the speed. Sorry about that. I don't want that. There's no point doing it, right, if we're not getting good video source. Let's see. Output. Thanks for letting me know about this, because I was wondering about that. High quality stream size, high quality video mode. How do I change it? Sorry about this. I'm going to have to get used to this streaming stuff. This is the problem with streaming. You got to have a good connection. I do have a fiber connection. Maybe I'll turn on the also Wi-Fi. Maybe that'll help. I've got a good connection here, so it shouldn't be a problem, but we'll have to see. Can I change it while I'm going? That's the problem. Output. Sorry about this. Bear with me. I don't know. How's it going? Is it streaming okay for everybody? Is it working? Is it working? Let me know what the quality is like. It just stopped once and now seems to be fine. Okay, thanks. Thanks. So do let me know if you're getting lags like that. That does help, because I don't want to be talking to myself and have the image froze. This is the problem with live streaming, right? But I do have a good connection. But I am in New Zealand. It's going, literally, this is not Starlink. This is a fiber going under the Pacific Ocean to you if you're watching this in the US. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible, really, isn't it? That it's just live streaming. It just stopped once and now seems to be fine. Thanks. If I worked out how to change the stream. Um, All right, let's just see. Like the thing about live streaming is that it doesn't have to be fast, does it? I mean, it doesn't have to be like a monologue, which is good. Okay, I can't seem to change the stream right now, but hopefully it's just working. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into some news, but let me know. Stopped again for me too. Okay. Sorry about this, folks. Okay, I'm just going to have to persist and work on this later. Yeah, I'm new to the streaming thing, so we'll have to see. How's it for everybody? Is it starting to work? Anyway, I'll persist and see how it goes. SpaceX heads for a record 1.78 trillion float amid fears it is overvalued. Analysts say IPO that could make Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire has a major disconnect on price. No kidding. Yeah, disconnect on price. So this is the question: is it expensive? Some people just don't care, right? They don't care if it's expensive or not. Nobody cares. Then that's the sign of a bubble as well, right? Elon Musk SpaceX is set to launch the biggest stock market float in history amid warnings that it may be overvalued. The space exploration satellite broadband and AI company will join the US stock market on Friday at a valuation of 1.78 trillion. So it's going up, right? 1.78. There's talk of 2 trillion. More than that, it's overvalued at 1 billion. Somebody says here, entropy achieved says it's overvalued at 1 billion. Well, I think it's definitely more than that. If you sold off all the assets, it would definitely be more than that. The offering is oversubscribed by 3 or 4 times, which is expected, but that's part of the hype, right? They want it to be oversubscribed. According to Reuters, with more than 250 billion of bids from investors keen to take part in the IPO. The 75 billion share offer is nearly 3 times the previous record, Saudi Aramco 29.4 billion. So this is a huge amount. And it's not the only company raising this much, right? Google has had it as an equity offering. Now I think that's actually a good one because they don't they could actually fund their AI developments from their balance sheet, from the cash flow, right? And all of these Mag 7 6 companies, I'm not going to include Tesla, have a huge capex in this AI infrastructure boom. And so Google is raising money because they can. And Berkshire Hathaway is one of them. They gave Berkshire Hathaway a discount, which is also a part of the strategy, I think, to have Berkshire Hathaway big name in there. So you've got Google, you've got OpenAI. They're all the rounds, the funding rounds of these are just so huge. And people will say, well, compared to the dot com bubble, but that was 25 years ago, over 25 years ago. So, there's been inflation and, the money's going to be different. No More Wars says I won't be buying any either. I like the name there, No More Wars. Yeah, that's another story, right? No, that's what Trump said, but look what's happening. Bombing as we speak, right? It's another example of Musk just pulling money out of his ass. Yeah, that's well, he is. If he's a genius at anything, it's financial engineering, right? Not actual engineering. Back to this news article, the $75 billion share offer is nearly 3 times the previous record. I've just read that. However, the investment research group Morningstar, yes, I did a video about this the other day. They've basically said it's $1 trillion overvalued. They've calculated that SpaceX is worth $63 a share, while the IPO is anticipated to be $135 a share. So yes, it's gonna be interesting to see over time whether it actually goes down, I mean, 50%. It's not unusual for an IPO, like, 6 months later, 5 or 6 months later, to be down 50%. It happens all the time. And retail investors with the FOMO get hit by that. 10x revenue is what I would value it at. Okay, so 10x revenue, when Meta went out as an IPO back in the day, it was Facebook back in the day. I think it was 10, 11 times revenue, and that was considered high. So this is almost 10 times that. With Google putting that money in or helping out, that did bring down the revenue, but these things are temporary. It's all focused on the IPO to launch at the maximum valuation. And Google owns, I think, 5% of SpaceX, so it was in their best interest
to pump that up, right? And they can exit as well to make money. I mean, this is all really, it seems, geared towards retail investors. I don't know, getting, you wouldn't say pump and dump, but some people are saying that. I mean, I wouldn't call it that. Pump and dumps are usually for smaller companies that, and crypto. People are used to crypto pump and dumps, and it's not even illegal in crypto to do that. You've just seen it over and over and over, where the insiders cash out, dump, and dump it on everybody else. I mean, this would be pretty incredible if SpaceX did that. I don't think so. I mean, I think if that happened, the pitchforks would be coming for Elon Musk, right? So, but it's, I don't know, it's pretty incredible. Even in an opera, it's not loading. So is it still not loading? Let me know if is the video freezing for you. Can you hear audio? Can you see the video? Let me know what's going on, because that annoys me that I that the live stream sucks. I'm not even recording it. I'm just live streaming it. Should be fine. I'll have to. My connection is the fastest I can get, but I am on the other side of the world from most people. This is why I don't live stream more, honestly, because this happens so often. But and I have the best stream I can get. It's high quality. How can I? It looks like I can't even change it in the settings while I'm streaming, which is crazy to me. Stream bitrate. Use high quality video mode. I'm going to take that off. Haha. Maybe that will improve it. I took off live streaming. It took off high quality video, so maybe that will help. I'm just going to go through the settings here because this is a problem. Sorry about this. I hate this. I hate having to do this on the fly with live streaming. This is the thing with recording. You can control all this stuff, but when you're doing it live like this, it's hard to do it. Maybe that will improve it over the next few seconds. I hope so. Let me just quickly go through the settings here. Bear with me. I know this is annoying. I hate this when people are doing this live on stream as well. But I will get better at this. I do want to do this about once a week, by the way. I want to get this right. I want to do it because it's good to interact with people. It's working. Yippee! Great. That seems to have. It works well from Sweden. Well, Sweden's got good. Sweden's got a good internet connection, right? You'd hope so. I think so. High tech. Oh, connected destinations. I'm streaming to the wrong channel too, to another channel. Never mind. Turn that off. I'm streaming to the JJ's Authentic New Zealand to that channel. That's not right. I don't want that. Yep. So this is like fixing an airplane on the fly, right? If you've ever done live streaming. All right, let's just see. Hopefully that's better. Hopefully that is better. Let me know if it's still a problem. But let's get back to this. This is so the price of 135. I think. I mean, it seems likely it's going to go higher. I mean, how many traders will be in there trading on the first day? It's going to be such high volume, and it's the wee hours of the morning for me. It like starts at 1:30, but I've seen people in retail forums wanting to get allocation. So there's definitely a lot of FOMO around. People don't care. People don't care about the valuation. They just want to get in there, right? I invest in several AI adjacent companies. Anyone else holding CRDO? I don't even know what that is, but I know that, CoreWeave and others that Ed Zitron was talking about on the video I did yesterday. There's going to be some. And I did a video about Allbirds. Remember Allbirds, the shoe company that is, a lot of these companies are getting in on the AI data center building or saying they are, and that seems to be enough to have the stocks skyrocket. I've had this before, adding .com to the name and the .com bubble. Uh, Blockchain was another one, right? It's just it seems maybe it'll be like that with space too. Adding space, we're a space company now, but it's all about AI. So Michael Field, the chief equity strategist at Morningstar, suggests investors should sit out the IPO and wait for a more attractive entry point down the line. So, but this is the thing about FOMO: people can't wait, right? It is literally the fear of missing out. Most IPOs in the USA, George says, seem to be priced around $20. Well, 135 is a lot, but so look, the price doesn't really matter. This is the thing. It does to a certain extent. I think to be listed, to be uplisted from the over-the-counter market, the where commonly known as the pink sheets, right? I think you have to have a share price over $5 to be uplisted, and more on that later because there is, as I said in one of my videos near the end this week, there's other things going on. Not an IPO, but you might know the company TrueLeaf, which is an MJ company. I don't I probably can't even really talk about it here because YouTube's still, even though that particular substance, if you know what I'm talking about, MJ is now the schedule has changed from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, and the people thought the Biden administration was going to do that, but it's turned out to be Trump, and that's uplisted. TrueLeaf uplisted on Wednesday to the NYSE, and that's live now. And there'll be a wave of those uplistings, not necessarily IPOs, but they are because they're uplisting from the OTC market in Canada. And in Canada, there was a bubble in that sector going way back 2018, 2017, 2018. I'm actually bullish on that sector. And if I've got time, I might talk about it. It's hard to talk about it on here because YouTube still doesn't like it. But the Dales Report's a YouTube channel that I do watch. They do live streams daily at the moment, and that's a sector that is under the radar. People, in terms of the pricing, the expensiveness, it's pretty low. It went way down to the depths. Good night, JJ. Bye bye, and good chat or good morning. Yep. See you later. Thanks for joining. I appreciate that. Hopefully the video's okay now. Let me know if it's not. I haven't seen any complaints about that yet. So hopefully what I did there in the settings might have fixed it, putting the quality a bit lower on the video. That might have helped. I don't know. I'm new to this streaming thing really, but I like the interaction. So thanks. See you later. We believe the business has real strengths, particularly in Starlink, but with so many unknown and untested technologies, yes, one could say almost science fiction, right? Elon's promises, predictions, but how long? Especially the orbital data centers. I mean, this is the AI component of it, right? It's going to be interesting to see when this actually happens. He came out with a statement a couple of days ago, or even yesterday, about how they're going to try and test one. I think he said before the end of the year, but he can say whatever he wants just for an IPO, right? To get the excitement going. And he hasn't even got unsupervised full self-driving and Tesla going yet, after saying next year, next year, next year. And also the Roadster, which is coming up to 9 years when people put money down and still haven't got it. So yeah, okay, let's move on. That's enough of that article. So this is another one from CNBC. SpaceX IPO will test how Wall Street prices strategic tech. Okay, bit of gobbledygook there. I'm just looking for that video with Steve Eisman. We'll come across it soon. Let's see. The IPO is captivating Wall Street, but SpaceX isn't a typical rocket company, defense contractor, or tech stock. Elon Musk's space company starts trading on Friday under the SPCX. Its launch business, Starlink Network, and national security role make it part of a new class of strategic tech company. Okay, I just want to play this video here. Hopefully, this comes out. I'll look at the settings, make sure it is. Yes, Musk has been doing the same hype as he has done with Tesla, says George. Yes, that is true. And with FSD, full self driving, I mean, so many predictions that he made have not come true, and how long can he put that off before people start to say this isn't working? Anyway, let's listen to this video here and let me know if this comes out okay. This is Steve Eisman, I think, in this one. I had a quick look at this. Let's see.
SpaceX is about to test the limits of Wall Street's imagination.
What I love about the S1 is it reads like a science fiction novel. I think the valuation's silly. The 28 trillion that you see as a total addressable market for SpaceX is absolute fantasy.
We're still putting big numbers into this. We still think the growth rates could be massive, but it's just, we can't get anywhere near that number that they're looking for.
They may be right, but they may also be using the wrong playbook because traditional comps, they miss what SpaceX has become. Its launch capacity, Starlink, national security, battlefield connectivity, and a private...
So Starlink is the only actually profitable business in there, right? And many people are saying, as Trump says, that they could get really big. I mean, the projections on these things can get massive, right? But I mean, I don't know. I mean, also the TAM, the total addressable market of SpaceX, they're saying 28 trillion. ARK Invest helping Kathy Wood, you know.
Infrastructure layer governments are starting to depend on. I'm Deirdre Bosa, and this is Strategic Tech, a whole new category.
Pulling out the whiteboard there. Strategic Tech.
The bull case for SpaceX is that it doesn't fit into one box.
SpaceX is a unicorn. It's a proxy for the AI trade, it's a proxy for the data center trade, it's a proxy for cloud computing, and it's a proxy for space.
SpaceX right now, in terms of getting things into orbit, getting to space, is a monopoly.
It's true. SpaceX is, monopoly, but there's also, speaking of New Zealand, Rocket Lab started in New Zealand. You might have seen the interview the other day. I think it was on Prof G Markets. There's an interview with the guy there. But they also kind of a distant second, but in reusable rockets. But the other thing about SpaceX is, I think I saw yesterday on a podcast or something, I can't remember what, that the actually launching stuff into space hasn't really grown that much. SpaceX is actually launching their own satellites. So, spending money to get satellites into space to Starlink, which is a good business. So 10,000 or more satellites. I think it's more like 15 now. I don't know. So that is a good business, but is it enough to carry the 1.75 trillion? And the other ones are sucking money. Like XAI is incredible how much money that is spending, and it really got rolled into SpaceX, I think, because to save face, it wasn't working. And now Elon Musk is renting out the data centers. He did manage to build them quickly, which others aren't. Ed Zitron in that video yesterday was talking about doing research on, the data centers that are being built for AI are not going as fast as people say. And people just don't care because there's so much hype around. People aren't actually looking about how fast it's being built. And it's way slower, which does smack of, things being in a bubble, because the .com, the internet infrastructure was kind of like that too, right? The circular financing, people were just saying this is being built, this is being built. And in that case, there was a lot of fiber being laid, and it was too much. It did get soaked up, but it took years. So there was overbuilding. Now there's seems to be overbuilding for data centers, or commitments for it, not actually the building. So in some ways, this could be worse. There's also backlash to data centers. So there's delays because of people not wanting it in their own backyard, with power prices going up and all this negative kind of aspect to it. Now, Nicholas says, where the name SpaceX comes from? That's the gap between Elon's ears and X is just the unknown. Well, there are a lot of unknowns, and people are willing to speculate at these times.
It will control taking things to space in the world. There's no doubt.
Hypergrowth, national importance, and not
You can
yet
hear that video,
regulated
right?
like the industries it's starting to replace. Three critical pillars that have almost never shown up in the same business. Start with growth. SpaceX's Starlink business doubling its subscribers in a year. Bankers estimating the AI business growing 100-fold by the end of the decade.
In our view, at the foundation model level, $15 to $20 trillion in enterprise value by 2030.
This is ARK Invest. They just, it's so ridiculous. I don't know why these people get taken seriously. They just, they're the ones that also said there'll be a million robo-taxis unsupervised on the roads by 2020. The projections these people have are just kind of ridiculous. Okay. So, Laborious Cretin, interesting name here, says Iran said SpaceX and Starlink are valid military targets. I saw that. What are the odds a local Starlink ground station gets hit after IPO? Helium needed for chip fab, etc. Yeah, I saw that Iran is going to be targeting Elon's company assets. Ally of Donald Trump, and we can talk about what Elon is trying to incite in Britain at the moment. Like he said, a civil war is inevitable, and he's being racist and hyping things up on X as we speak, even as this IPO comes up. So Elon being Elon, anyway.
The Starlink business alone, I think you'll see massive revenue scaling in that business over the next couple of years.
So the instinct is to price it like other growth tech, but that sells it short. Meta is worth $1.5 trillion. SpaceX could debut around that same level, but if Meta went dark tomorrow, the country would still run. But if SpaceX went dark, the government would have a real problem.
If you look at SpaceX's space capabilities, they are nation state level. Without SpaceX, the U.S. would really have no launch capability for humans to the International Space Station.
It wouldn't matter if it's a temporary stop. I mean, the space shuttle program, the space program has been stopped all the time. But yes, it is becoming a strategic asset, but the funding as well. Like Elon, I think he's clever here because he's got government funding. He's trying to get this valuation for SpaceX and other companies. He's trying to get funding. He has succeeded in getting funding from all over the place, government contracts, and he's folding his other companies into SpaceX because it is that safe, so-called safe government funding, right? Just people say, "Oh, Starlink is funding everything," but it's not. Starship is not successful yet. It hasn't got into stable orbit yet. People say it's got into orbit, but not stable orbit. And to have this growth in SpaceX, Starship needs to work because they can increase, getting the satellites into space. And there's so much of what Elon is saying relies on Starship, which is not where it needs to be yet. I wonder how many Iranian subs are parked off USA shores right now. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the US has got pretty good surveillance capabilities, but as far as the Middle East, Iran can attack US companies in the region, including in the UAE, and it has been, right. So, and I think that it's been a big mistake, really, of the Trump presidency. He lost a lot of support by going to war like that, and illegal war, not getting congressional approval. And I mean, I have to say, I do think that it was pretty much a last resort and to distract from the Epstein files, which has worked.
NASA and the Pentagon rely on it. Ukraine has relied on Starlink during the war, and SpaceX operates roughly 2/3 of all the active satellites in orbit. Which brings us to trait 2, strategic dependency.
Right now, for the United States government, it's one of the most indispensable companies out there.
About 20% of SpaceX's business in 2025, it came from government work. So it may actually be closer to strategically important companies in defense, giants like Lockheed Martin, RTX, Northrop, General Dynamics, and L3Harris. Except that doesn't work either because Lockheed is barely growing. Revenue up less than 1% last quarter, and it trades at roughly 20 times earnings.
So these defense companies, you'll notice that Silicon Valley's been going heavily into tech because of this government money. There's just so much. Such a big, massive budget from the Pentagon, right, or U.S. military, $1 trillion or more now. I mean, Pete Hegseth has been, the Secretary of War Crimes has been trying to get more and more money, and these Silicon Valley companies, Anduril is another one, and so a lot of these Silicon Valley companies trying a new source of funding. Just curious, why do you think the target amount to raise is 75 billion? Well, that is the number that's been floated, right? And other companies too. It's what's incredible is these AI rounds, right? If you think of OpenAI and Anthropic, and they've become like a regular funding round. It's incredible. That's why I think it's partly a bubble. These are just massive funding rounds, and there's this race to IPO because there's only a certain amount of capital around, even from retail, and that's why they're getting retail involved from institutional money. There's only a certain amount of these massive, massive pools of capital that can get soaked up by these IPOs. So 3 of them, SpaceX, you'll notice how rushed it was in the end, that Elon was rushing this and rushing it into the index. And then there's a race on between Anthropic and OpenAI to go IPO, really, because maybe the third one, there won't be so much money around and it won't go so well. That's what they're, I think, afraid of, that they need the money. And there's only a certain amount of money, even in a massive, massive capital market like the US, and really it's worldwide. And, Elon has tapped into it, and these other companies have tapped into funds and more these big funding rounds. And, they would need to get to profitability. Do they even care? I think at the moment, OpenAI, could it be second or third? There's going to be a race on for those 2. OpenAI has just announced that it's going to IPO, but no date on that. Anthropic came out a bit earlier than that. So, it will be interesting to see if the other ones go so well. Elon, of course, getting in there first to get that money. Num, num, num.
It's also regulated. Lockheed gets most of its revenue from...
That saying, by the way, has anybody watched BoJack Horseman? It's great. There's a character on there that used to say that, get that money, num, num, num.
the U.S. government. And on major defense contracts, the Pentagon reviews pricing, costs, and profits to make sure the government is getting a fair deal. That limits how much upside Lockheed can actually capture. SpaceX doesn't have that same leash, at least not yet. Regulation may come, and we'll get to that, but Congress moves slowly, and SpaceX is moving very fast. So for now, it gets the best of both worlds. The indispensability of a defense contractor with the pricing power of a tech platform. That's the premium, and one that traditional comps just don't capture.
It could become a strategically important company with a geopolitical premium attached to the stock.
No kidding. I mean, Starlink has become a strategic asset for military, for many things, right? And it'll get bigger. Starlink has been successful. It is. Like, I'm very critical of Elon, very critical of what he's doing, but really Starlink is the one good asset in there. The others, very questionable. XAI, hugely questionable. He's renting out the data centers to Anthropic and is it Google? Can't remember. I got blanked on that. But like Grok has not been successful. Hardly anybody uses it outside of X. If you go on X and you use it, you get the impression that everybody uses it. That's because a lot of people on there do. But outside, it hasn't been successful. And Elon was calling Anthropic misanthropic, being very critical, and then he turned around because he needed them to rent out the data center, right? Like, it hasn't been successful building those data centers. He has to rent them out. He wouldn't if he didn't have to.
This isn't just theory. Public markets are already rewarding one company that fits this model, Palantir. Revenue was up 85% in its most recent quarter. More than half its business comes from government customers, and its software is now wired into defense, intelligence, and federal operations.
Yeah, I think Elon saw that with, Peter Thiel's company, that, they were getting government money right from the start and trying to create a monopoly that way by, going into these government agencies, getting money, and so really embedded in there. And then going out in concentric circles. If you've heard Peter Thiel talk, he talks about, building a monopoly like Facebook did, starting in universities and really cornering that market or getting that market and then going out to different markets and being a monopoly kind of all the way along. And Palantir could say has done that. But, people like Michael Burry, big short investor Michael Burry has called it out. It's not even being an AI company, more of a consulting company that I think they use Anthropic even, and they don't have their own tech really.
We work with them.
They do have their own software, but it's the AI that they use is Anthropic, I think.
Most important governments.
There
we
he is.
are controversial.
It's the CEO of Palantir.
Quite frankly, because we power every single Western power that's at war.
That makes Palantir hard to compare, except to the defense tech company Anduril, now valued at more than $60 billion in private markets. They're not Lockheed, but they're not normal software either. Part AI company, part defense contractor, part government operating system. And that's why the multiple looks so extreme. The market, it's not just paying for growth, it's paying for strategic importance.
Okay, so the multiple was extreme. It was more extreme. Michael Burry again calling that out and shorting it, and I think it's down 39% since he started calling that out, and it's been over 100 days. I think it's like 120 days since he said that and since he shorted it. And so multiples can get extreme, and SpaceX multiples seem extreme. So George says Google and Anthropic paying $1 billion a month with the loose contracts. Yeah, the loose contract thing. So that's what I'm saying, that Google, yeah, it is Google chimed in there right before the IPO, but the contract, I think George Noble, a investor who's on social media a lot, did call us out too. No, it was Jim Chanos, another famous short seller who was involved in uncovering Enron back in the day and early on in his career, and he's calling this out too. But he noted how loose the contracts were, that Google could pull out if they wanted to. They could get out of the contract really easily. So it's interesting that all this is being announced before the IPO, right? To help it all seem like it's great. And but Elon was scrambling. He was scrambling to rent out those data centers, I think. Again, good at financial engineering.
And that is the strategic tech premium. Palantir may only be the first test case because the next wave is much bigger. SpaceX, yes, but OpenAI and Anthropic, they could be next.
SpaceX IPO this week will definitely be like a leading indicator to how Anthropic or OpenAI will go out.
They don't.
So that was the CEO of Perplexity. That's another one that could IPO, right? Or get bought out, possibly get bought. I mean, I was wondering if it could get bought out by Google or a company like that. I don't know.
Own rockets or satellites, but they are becoming infrastructure in a different way. Physically, they sit at the center of the AI infrastructure buildout. Data centers, power chips, cloud capacity. Operationally, their models are starting to power the workflows companies and governments rely on, from cybersecurity to research to defense, education, healthcare. And their growth is already there. OpenAI is the fastest company in history to hit 1 billion users. And Anthropic, well, it is on one of the most relentless revenue ramps in technology.
Yep, they're getting a lot of users, but also the valuations are incredibly high. So there's a lot of FOMO around these things, and they know, like, again, AI, it's an AI bubble. I'm so sure of that. Not financial advice about what to do. I have to say that I'm not a financial advisor, but I do think I can spot a bubble.
So they may have the same strategic tech setup: high growth, rising indispensability, and potentially much larger markets. The problem with being nationally important is that eventually the nation notices, and that is already happening across strategic tech. Bernie Sanders is pushing the idea that Americans should own a stake in the biggest AI companies, floating the idea of putting shares of OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI into a public AI wealth fund. And from the other side, the Trump administration, it has shown a new willingness to take direct stakes in companies it considers strategic: Intel, MP Materials, US Steel. It's the same instinct. If a company becomes too important, Washington wants a seat at the table. And that can cut both ways.
What geopolitics giveth, geopolitics can taketh away.
When Washington considers a company essential, it can make it, like Intel, where a government stake helped turn a struggling chipmaker into a strategic market bet. But it can also limit it. The same government dependency that supports the valuation, it can also invite control, like price caps. It can force access rules, or in the extreme, nationalization.
Could a future
Nationalization. Well, imagine if there was a bailout, if there had to be a massive bailout. I mean, that's nationalization, right? I mean, going back to the GFC, global great financial crisis or global financial crisis, that's pretty much what it was. They let some go under. They could have bailed out more of the banks, but they did deals. They did massive bailouts, bailouts. Could that happen with SpaceX if it got into real trouble? I mean, the pitchforks would come for Elon Musk. People got so angry back then, right? I mean, this could be similar. Now, good. Now, Scott says Google owns 7.5% of SpaceX, so the money is going in circles. Yeah, there's a lot of money going in circles during this AI boom, right? There really is, and Nvidia is at the center of it. Again, yesterday, Ed Zitron in the video I did yesterday did talk about that as well. He's been one of the chief critics, very critical, and I do like what he's saying. Finally, Hyperloop in space. Yeah. Hyperloop on the moon. Data centers in space.
Government nationalize? Of course it could.
But the more likely path is regulation. Strategic tech could slowly
Regulation. Elon's right in there trying to stop regulation. A lot of the Silicon Valley people getting into government trying to stop regulation of data centers, of AI, of space.
start to look more like a utility, like your power company. It's essential, but it can't set whatever rates it wants. Regulators cap the upside because the service is too important. And the first major company ever called too big to fail wasn't actually a bank.
It was to describe the Lockheed Company in the 70s, which was considered so essential to help the Americans fight the Cold War against the Soviets that you couldn't allow them to go bankrupt because it would be a strategic vulnerability for the United States.
Lockheed is a
Yeah, Silicon Valley's changed its tune after years ago not wanting to get into the military, but I think the pools of capital or the pools of revenue just were too tempting, too big, and now more of them have gone to the right politically and want to get that money, get that government money, yum yum yum, and obviously military is the biggest part of it.
essential too. It builds the F-35, but it doesn't get to name its price because the Pentagon has too much leverage. For SpaceX, the government is already one of its most important partners. NASA, the Pentagon, Starshield national security launches, satellite connectivity, and it could expand that to the UK as well. So that's the tension. What makes SpaceX so valuable is that governments are becoming dependent on it, but that dependency is also what eventually caps the upside.
Caps the upside. Well, we'll have to see. Okay, let's move on from this. So I want to go through some of these top comments on my video yesterday. So this video was with Ed Zitron. Dangerous AI bubble, retail investors are being conned. So this is what, if you haven't seen that, I'll just play the intro here. It just shows you a basic, quick thing of what Ed's saying.
And it's a dangerous thing for retail investors who are being conned by this. The market is irrational, and the market is inherently invested in something that I think is destructive, especially the SpaceX IPO, and OpenAI and Anthropic should not be allowed to go public.
Okay, so that's the base of what he's saying here. He thinks that it's dangerous that retail investors are going to be ripped off by this, and they're going public at massive valuations, right? So let me know what you think about that. Do you think that is going to happen here? I know there's obviously people in the comments who want to get SpaceX stock no matter what, but Ed is definitely screaming from the rooftops about this. He has been for months and months doing research, saying the data centers aren't being built as fast as what they're saying. It's all overvalued. It's very dot-com bubble-like, and fighting against really the FOMO and the hype from the financial media. So here's another article. Where's this? This is Fortune. As SpaceX goes public, a $100 billion shadow market faces a reckoning. Now, I haven't read this before. What is this about? A day ahead of the spectacle of it is a spectacle, isn't it, of SpaceX's IPO, the much anticipated trillion plus valuation of the company, a Frankenstein creature of Elon Musk's dreams and realities, is emerging as an investor Rorschach test. Some will see cosmic potential, while others will see science fiction red flags. Raise his hand. I'm in the science fiction red flags there. And track record. Yes, Elon Musk did. He did popularize and scale electric cars. Like, I'll give him that. But a lot of the stuff in the last 5 years, let's say, his predictions and sci-fi fantasies. I mean, he said that Starship will be on Mars now, and people still think it's going to happen. Then he changed to the moon. So MAW says here, Elon hasn't mastered FSD here on Earth. How the hex is he going to master the problems with Mars? Exactly. I mean, Mars is on the back burner, right? I mean, there are red flags here, and a lot of scientists have said that it's sort of it is a fantasy, right? There's so much about Mars that or getting to Mars, the problem of humans being in space for a long time, the bone density thing. I mean, it's a major factor. I mean, you could say it's going to be robots, but he is talking about having a million colony on Mars. He said that he wouldn't IPO SpaceX until they were on Mars and setting up on Mars, right? So that's fantasy in itself. He's changed his tune on that. Mars is soil is literally poisonous. There's massive radiation. There's just so many things that make this science fiction. So Scott says, my advice about investing in SpaceX, invest long term, but only if you believe in the mission. Okay, we're not giving investment advice. We're not really allowed to do that. Or it depends what country you're in. Some people, where I am, you can't do that. The market authority, you can't on social media just do that. In the US, the authorities seem to be missing in action, and so people can say what they want. But it depends where you are. I think in Singapore, people are allowed to do it. Just depends where you are in the world. But I do not try and give any investment advice. But more generally, I can say there's a bubble. I do think it is. So, but for one group of investors, those who purchase SpaceX stock on the overheated and shadowy market for secondary shares, the company's listing day will initiate a nerve-wracking moment of truth. For those anxious investors, here's what will happen. SpaceX will go public, the lockup period will end, and they'll find out whether they hit the jackpot, were taken by a scam, or something in between. So those investors wanting to cash out or cashing some out, I mean, I think there'll be a chance for them to do that if they wanted to. Just what the price they're aiming at. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It is going to be a spectacle, as they say. The line between the public and private equities has been blurring over the past 20 years, and nowhere has there been more true in the secondaries market. The parallel and sometimes fraud-riddled financial market where investors buy, sell, and effectively gamble for shares of the world's sexiest private companies. Yeah, so these companies have been definitely staying private longer, and that's partly because that private market's been more liquid for shares. That's been possible, but so they've got to supposedly $1 trillion valuations, and in this case, nearly $2 trillion valuations on the private market. So back in the dot-com bubble, or in general, like there have been fewer companies IPOing over really the last 5 years, fewer and fewer, and they're waiting longer and longer. There are other companies that have been IPOing around 50 billion, and that was thought to be a lot. Like in the dot-com bubble, there was like virtually no revenue, and $1 billion was a lot. And now we've got $1 trillion valuations. I mean, come on, it's 25 years later for sure, but it's a lot of money. There's a massive valuations. These transactions have happened in the dark for years and accelerating velocity through the AI boom. But this summer of white-hot IPOs, SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic, could be the crucial moment where the lights flicker on. The Wild West of secondary. So it talks about that. So, yep, it's definitely a hot market after not being hot. The last bubble, and it was a bubble, was the SPAC boom. Remember the king of SPACs, Chamath, who's also justifying this valuation. He had many SPACs, a lot, or SPACs in general. There were hundreds. I remember seeing a graph. There were literally hundreds of SPACs. It was a different way to IPO, but that was in 2021. That whole COVID era with them, there were a lot of stimmy money. There's money to buy stocks, and then there was an emerging tech crash. There was. It went down. Some of those stocks went down, not just the SPACs, but emerging tech stocks went down 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. The EV stocks, remember all those EV companies that didn't work out? I mean, and then it went down, and then the AI boom, ChatGPT came out in late 2022. So how many years are we in now? You know, the dot-com bubble. I see it as being similar because Netscape Navigator, and I remember this. This was, my first experience, really, of the stock market and the boom and bubble back then. This Netscape came out, and that initiated it, and it IPO'd not long after. And this was, Mark Andreessen was involved in that. He's still around. And it took from, I think that was IPO in 1995. I think it was launched in 1994. It IPO'd in 1995, and then it took till 2000, early 2000, for the bubble to develop and to get. So 5 years. You think, okay, bubbles can last 5 years. And they get to the point where really hardly anybody is skeptical anymore, or they don't even care. They just, a lot of more speculation. And I think we're kind of getting more advanced where there's this wave of IPOs happening. And that's what Ed Zitron was saying too. Let's see what people. I'm just going to go to some of these comments on that video. Let's see. I see Ed, I click. So I agree with that. I like what Ed Citron's saying. Ed is right. This is going to wreck 401ks. Musk cannot keep his promises. And when it all comes crashing down, the average taxpayer will be the ones asked to bail the mess out, which is exactly what happened in the global financial crisis, which was not a stock market bubble. It was a housing bubble, so it was different. The Japan bubble, if you know about bubbles, that was both at the same time. It was highly unusual and maybe the biggest one in history. Like Japan basically was a bubble, right? There's a bubble in the real estate market and a bubble in the stock market, and that's pretty rare if you think about it. That hasn't happened very often. I don't know if it's happened before. That was absolutely massive, and it's taken decades to recover from that. I think real estate in Japan, I don't even know if it's recovered from that after that. And the stock market really only got back to those levels, I think it was 2025 when it got back. So from 1990 to 2025, that's what can happen in bubbles. That big. Excuse me. Elon has a lot of non-profits. Flights MDev says all his companies, it's just Starlink making money. Yep, that's true. Starlink it is a good business in there for sure, but is it worth 1.75 trillion? Or the other ones tend to take away from it. XAI, for instance, burning through money, absolutely burning through money. And I think he was desperate to get money from that because he was railing against misanthropic, and now he's taking money from them to rent out their data center. So there's some humble pie being eaten there from Elon. Okay, so let's see what some other people say on that video, yesterday's video. When Blackstone said they would limit withdrawals, I pulled my money out, bought a safe, and filled it with gold and silver. Well, gold's been going nuts over the past few years, really. Smell like fees and commissions. The US stock market and its hangers-on is much worse than any casino run by criminals. And that's one thing that Chamath said when he was criticized about the SPACs, right? There's no crying in the casino. I mean, please. Which is true if you're going to speculate in bubbles, right? But inexperienced novice investors always get caught out. There's always a new generation. This is the thing. It's 25 years later after the dot-com bubble. Half the people on Wall Street don't remember that, or don't even half the people on Wall Street don't even remember the global financial crisis at this point, which was 2008, 2009. If they're younger. SpaceX IPO should be like 100 to 200 billion at the most, this person says on that The comment on the video, assuming Starlink will keep carrying them, they dump Grok, rent all compute. In 5 years, they might get to that. Yeah, will there be a reckoning? I don't know. Zitron, they're talking about Ed Zitron. Ed Zitron is probably the guy I listen to the most on this, and I think he's right. He has been calling this out. He has got detailed research. He's looked at these data centers being built and said, he even said in that video, in that interview, that I can't remember which one it was, but they've said the data center's finished, but he actually looked into it and it's only half finished. And nobody cares at this point because it's all, this is when things get inflated and bubbles go, nobody really cares following up what is actually happening. And then it does get revealed later or even after the fact. So yeah, this is thing that Ed said here. So this comment, an IPO is not just a way for investors to get into a company, as Zitron says here. An IPO is the way for VC investors and insiders to get out. So that's the exit liquidity. So yes, VCs, I mean, that's what it is, right? They early investors, they invest in, say, 10 companies. One of them will knock it out, should knock it out of the park. That's what they're aiming for. Sometimes none of them do, and they kind of go out of business. But, maybe some will be mediocre and one will be a Google or a SpaceX, for instance. So they do take the chance to get out, or at least some get out. Not all, because even after the IPO, if Peter Thiel said this too. I don't like Peter Thiel, but he does have some good things to say about investing. He is a good investor, I think. He talks about the cash flow, like Silicon Valley companies. So you've got the VC capital that goes in. They carry it for a long time. Like Uber, like the prices were cheap on Uber for a long time because VCs was basically subsidizing that and trying to hyperscale around the world, which worked. And then the prices get jacked up. So in some cases, they're more expensive than taxis, right? In a lot of cases. And then they're hoping later on that's when the cash flow really starts. So he's saying it like it's 15 years after founding, 15 to 20 years is when the massive cash flow starts. So it's not that VCs want to get out or early investors want to get out. They might keep some in because they realize if it's a good company, the cash flow will be massive later on. Most of the cash flow comes like 15 years in or later. And SpaceX is a 20-year-old company, isn't it? More than 20 years old. But it's not gushing cash. Starlink is doing well, but it's many people are saying that it's early days yet, but it is. We'll have to see. Elon's got big plans, obviously, and it is a bet. It is SpaceX is. It's a bet on the jockey. It's a bet on Elon, right? It really is because nobody says it's not expensive, but people say it's a bet. It's betting with Elon. Right. Just going through these are the kind of most popular comments on here. I think people have good things to say. If there were a speculative asset like crypto, the risk would fall largely on the individual investor. But if the SpaceX IPO turns out to be as overhyped or structurally unsound as many credible analysts suggest, rather than the investment of a lifetime promoted by previously respected exchange and financial institutions, the consequences extend far beyond those who buy the shares. A collapse at the scale would ripple through index funds, yes, pension portfolios, and broader market valuations. Even people with no direct exposure to SpaceX could feel impact. Yes, that is the danger of going into the index 2 weeks after it IPOs, which you'd think on paper should boost the price, and it could do, but it will go into people's retirement portfolios. The S&P 500 thankfully isn't doing that. I'm sure some people would want it, but it's supposed to wait 12 months, show good profitability, and then go into an index. That's how stability is they're supposed to work with these indices, but not with this. So this person, Martin C. Day. The world is already being made poorer by Trump and Putin. Now Musk will get in on the act and may even bring down financial institutions, many of who seem to have left their brains at the door as they encourage people to invest in SpaceX. Okay, I think that's a well thought through comment. I mean, that speculation there about, well, Trump and Putin and everything, but I mean, if Elon, a lot of people already don't like Elon, and he's going to become a trillionaire out of this. I mean, if this all falls apart, what is going to happen to Elon? Like, will the pitchforks come after him? What's going to happen? He already joked that if Trump didn't win, and he donated more than $280 million to the campaign, like he joked that he was going to go to prison. Was that actually a joke? I mean, there's lawfare, and the Trump administration is also doing lawfare, but could there be truth to that? Because there were various agencies investigating, like FSD and his other companies. Anyone that doesn't realize it's gambling is naive, MAW says in the chat. LMAW, even this clown is hyped for the IPO. I'm not hyped for the IPO. I'm not hyped at all. If you're talking about me, this is a spectacle. It's definitely a spectacle, but I don't want in on this. I'm just watching this and making videos about it. I mean, it's historic. It's definitely historic, right? And I think it's a historic bubble. So we'll have to see what happens. Have you read the rules for investors on this IPO? They can't sell for 12 months, but Elon is allowed to. I don't actually think Elon is locked up, but he can borrow against it, right? And which is what he tends to do. But there are other investors. I mean, like you could say one good thing is it is making employees millionaires, lots of them. There's been articles about that. And I mean, it's a good thing because it's not easy to work for it's not easy to work for Elon at all. There's a lot of people who quit. But there were those stories in the dot-com bubble as well. Definitely, like a lot of millionaires were made. So there's that. Incorrect. Yeah, I think Elon can't. He's not allowed to. He is locked up, and that's part of it. Like it's probably good, but he can easily borrow money against the valuation, and he does tend to do that. So it's it's not in his best interest to see it crash and burn, especially from that social aspect, right? Like the pitchforks, like Sam Altman's house being attacked a few weeks ago, like that was the thing that really rattled these guys, these Silicon Valley oligarchs. They are scared of that. It's probably the biggest thing, the pitchforks coming for them. And Elon being a trillionaire, while other people are struggling, especially if this goes bad, and people are made poorer, because that happened after the global financial crisis, people got into real trouble and there was really a lot of pushback and the bailouts. Like if that happened with Elon, I don't know what would happen in society. So somebody else says this will be the largest rug pull in the history of rug pulls. Well, we will see. We will see. I think it's not going to happen quickly. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but we'll see what happens. Elon signed not to sell for 366 days. Yeah, I think that's true. But I mean that's a good time. A year is probably good timing on this. Bubble's gone for a lot longer than people expect. Like people who call bubbles are often wrong because it can go on for way longer than they expect. And they can build if history is any guide, they can go on. Like that Japan bubble, to build up to where it went on for years and years and years. And that's the thing about it's because it's incremental, people start to think it's normal, especially people who haven't kind of been through a bubble before. Like I remember the dot-com bubble because I was young and excited about the market and all that. It was a good lesson. Okay, let's get back to some of this article. Excuse me. SpaceX IPO marks the end of the no-brainer benchmark index trade. Investors do not need big benchmarks to get what they want. I don't know. What is this about? I mean, some people have said, many people are saying, some people are saying that if you don't want SpaceX in an index fund and for your retirement account, you could kind of make your own index. I saw somebody saying that yesterday. You could make a portfolio with SpaceX not in it. But I mean, realistically, that's not easy to do for people. Like, that's difficult. People with retirement accounts are just putting money in on a regular basis, and that's the point, is that they're not doing it themselves, right? They're not picking stocks, so that's a lot to ask people to do. Is John frozen? Am I frozen? Is the video frozen again? Let me know if it is. It's annoying if it is. Sorry if it is. I will try next live stream I do, and I kind of want to do this every week, I think. I will try and do it on a lower quality, and so hopefully. But I do have a fast connection, really fast here. Like, I'm on the other side of the world, though, to most of you, but it shouldn't matter. Okay, I don't want to see that one. BlackRock seeks to buy at least $5 billion in SpaceX IPO shares. I mean, that's a lot. And Ron Barron has said investor, it glitched a couple of times. Okay, sorry about that. Not frozen. Thanks. Thanks for letting me know. This is the problem with live streams. They glitch out sometimes, don't they? Even if you've got a fastest connection that you can get. But yeah, being on the other side of the world, I still think it's incredible thinking about the internet. Like, this is going from me doing this in New Zealand, it's going under the Pacific Ocean to you, wherever you are in the world, to Sweden. Somebody's in Sweden, so in the US. It's pretty amazing, really. I mean, we can't complain too much, can we? Maybe I should be using Starlink. No way. Asset manager, well, backup Starlink. See, that's the thing. Starlink could become a backup for streamers. It's as if like, people are making a lot of money. I'm not making a lot of money out of this stream, but there are streamers who have like millions or hundreds of thousands of streams, and that makes a lot of sense to have some sort of backup if you're streaming every day, all day, like say Hassan Piker and people like that. But he's in LA streaming to mostly US people, so that's that that's a lot. It doesn't have to go under the Pacific Ocean, but it does to get to me. Sought to buy at least five. So this is BlackRock sought to buy $5 billion worth of shares in an initial public offering. The Wall Street Journal reported on Thursday, citing people familiar with the matter. SpaceX is expected to raise $75 billion. So somebody asked about that. Why do you think it's raising $75 billion? There it is. In what would be the world's largest IPO on record at about 1.8 trillion. Well, it's going up, isn't it? 1.75, 1.8. I've heard. Could it be 2 trillion when it goes out on the first day? We'll have to see. It's going to be interesting. Don't use Starlink. George says, no, I'm not. I won't. I will not. I'm not using any Elon products. I try not to. I do use X, actually, just because I do. It is kind of still useful for real-time news, but I do use Blue Sky. I don't actually. I've kind of weaned myself off Instagram. I don't use it for. I don't have a John Johnson Lounge account on there. And I don't really make short form. I mean, I could clip everything. I could pay somebody to do short clips, but I just haven't bothered doing that. I kind of like this long form, or longer, 12 to 15 minute, and it's live streaming, except for the glitchy live streams that do happen. That annoys me, and I'm sure it annoys you. The order book closed on Wednesday, and bankers are determining share allocations ahead of. Yeah, well, I mean, retail investors. I mean, that's the part of oversubscription, right? They want more demand than than is available, because that helps the price go up. So SpaceX previously reported considering allocating as much as 30% of the offering to individual investors. So, Phantoma3 says, is X running at a loss since Musk took over? I think so. Like, X got folded into XAI to kind of save it, and then XAI got folded into SpaceX to save it. Really, it's the way that I see it. And so, I don't know why there's not more talk about that, because that seems like what's happening in Tesla. The same. Tesla financials have been going down, down, down. I think the next Tesla earnings will probably be good because of the oil price going up. I mean, obviously, more people are buying EVs right now, right, over the past few months, surely. But yeah, that's what seems to be happening. Like, he's folding everything into this massive conglomerate, but it's companies that are not doing well that he's folding into them. So, if I was an SpaceX investor early on, I would not be happy about what he's been doing. I mean, he's rolled XAI into SpaceX and said we're going to do orbital data centers, but really, XAI was not doing well. Grok was not doing well, and that's why he's renting out the data center, right? Musk has rewritten the IPO playbook for SpaceX in many other ways, from planning to give retail investors a larger role in allocations, to pushing for early index inclusion, and structuring governance to preserve strong founder control. Like, I haven't talked about that. It's amazing what he's done there. Like, he can never be kicked out, and shareholders really have no recourse. He can do whatever he wants. He's like an absolute dictator. SpaceX did not immediately, and Elon Jellicles, the supporters of Elon, like that. They like that can't happen because there have been question marks about Tesla, how the board is just ineffective, and they've all been made rich, including his brothers on the board. Goodness sake! I mean, come on. And the chair of the board's been made so rich from it, who is Australian, Robert Denholm, I think. She's made, and they've been selling shares, right, that in different stages. The board members have been selling shares, and I think she's made like $500 million out of it from just being the chair of the board. But I mean, what do they do? Elon's just like the dictator of the board. He does whatever he wants. It's like money for nothing. I think the data centers in space, George says, is because SpaceX just does LEO launched. Low Earth orbit. Yeah. I mean, Starlink, it's pretty incredible. Like, it is. Like, where I am in New Zealand, the satellites there's so many visible now. I mean, I live somewhere sort of on the edge of the city on purpose, and you can see stars. You can see it really well here at night. Even though I am in quite a big city, there's so many satellites now. Compared to a few years ago, and it's Starlink satellites. So this is interesting too. I might go into this a little bit. I've referred to this in my videos. Will Lockett's newsletter. I do subscribe to this. It's a paid thing, but he won't mind me, I don't think, talking about it a little bit here. I hope. So we're an hour and a half in now. I'm caffeinated and still going. This is the thing with live streams. There's no hurry. So appreciate people being here, and people will watch it later, hopefully. But there's no time limit. It's not a 15-minute video. So, but I do run out of puff, literally, after a while. It's 10 o'clock in the morning here on a Friday, so I'm pretty relaxed about it, to be honest. After I've done this, there's no editing, so that's good. SpaceX IPO grift explained, Will says. The SpaceX IPO is looking less and less like a galaxy brain business decision and more like a carefully engineered way to give the billionaire SpaceX insiders an exit strategy to make the scorching hot potato that is SpaceX stock everyone else's problem. You see how critical he is? He is a man after my own heart. SpaceX is the gap in between Elon's ears. Somebody says, well, he's clever though. Financial engineering is very clever. If he's a genius at anything, it's that. and this and selling sci-fi, monetizing the sci-fi fantasy. I am not the first to talk about this topic. A More Perfect Union and Patrick Boyle have some great videos diving into the SpaceX IPO. Now, I did a video with referencing both of those videos, so I wonder if Will actually saw that video. I'm guessing so, but so he says I highly recommended giving both of those a watch. I do too. Yeah, they're both of those. More Perfect Union. Patrick Boyle's done a really good analysis of the prospectus and the SpaceX IPO, and I think he teaches at, is it London College or something, like and he used to be a fund manager or some sort of analyst. The pump. So he talks about this being a pump and dump, and so the pump. This is long. I'm not going to read all this, but I only got here 20 minutes ago, but I will watch from the start later. I appreciate that. I think we had some glitching going on there, so sorry about that if you just skip through that if you find some glitching. Relatively new to the live streaming thing. The pump. All pump and dump schemes have two phases, hence the name. First, the price is artificially boosted or pumped way beyond its actual value. Then the insiders sell or dump at the peak, pulling the rug out from under everyone else, who are left holding the bag, and the price comes crashing down. And this is not unusual for a lot of IPOs. And like, IPOs often happen when the market's elevated to get the maximum amount of money for the insiders, right? That's how it goes. That's why, like, Warren Buffett, that we know, arguably the best investor of all time, says that he just doesn't touch IPOs. It's just like, why? There's no reason. It's just he understands what they're for, and there's no rush, but he's patient. Thanks to the torrent of crypto and NFT grifts over the past few years, most people are now fairly familiar with how this scheme plays out. Yes, and it's not even illegal, it seems, to pump and dump in the crypto market. How wealthy it can make some perpetrators, and how catastrophic the losses can be for the victims. So, where is the alleged pump and dump in the SpaceX IPO? Now, I gotta say, it doesn't make sense for Elon to dump, right? I mean, the backlash, the public backlash, getting the public involved in this, getting into index funds like that would be absolutely brazen if that's what this is about. So I think it's more likely that he might not intend for it to happen, but it may happen. So just in the chat here, did the IPO just happen? No, this is IPO Eve, so it's going to happen within the next 24 hours. The next trading session, it's happening, so it'll be a big one. It'll be all over the media. In my time, it's like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's going to happen. That's why I'm doing this now. I'm not going to be up. I'm not that excited about it. I'll just see what happens afterwards, but I expect it to be, huge. Insiders, the 1%, for sure. Somebody else says, okay, so, well, how do you artificially raise the price of anything? Simple, restrict the supply and coerce demand. And Musk is openly doing that. Yes, he's very good at this. And, it's under the guise of helping retail investors. That's what he said, that Tesla, that's how he built his army of retail shareholders in Tesla. But is it about helping them, or is it about something else? Let's start with supply. Most companies float between 10 and 30% of their shares in the IPO. Larger, more mature companies like SpaceX often always aim for a higher end of that range. When you consider the colossal amount of capital SpaceX will require in the coming years just to remain functional, yep, with more than that in a minute, it would make sense for SpaceX to offer more than 30%, but no, SpaceX is offering less than 5% of its stock. This insane construction will create artificial scarcity, particularly when you take into account the company and the IPO's publicity and seriously jack up the price. This is the beanie baby approach to pricing. But what about demand? Well, Musk has a way of jacking that up too. No kidding. And don't forget, he owns a social media company and relies on that for hype. And he's got his army of supporters on there and influencers. All right. So somebody in the chat, Ivan says, also, would Musk still care about the public backlash? He's basically burned every bridge that's flammable. Well, I think there's even more bridges to be burned, including his supporters, the people that still support him. If the rug comes out from under them, it's basically about the money at this point. They ignore everything that he says on there. All his racist tirades, his just basically neo-Nazi type of rhetoric. I mean, they see it. They just a lot of people, I think, have still stick with his. Just say it's about the investing. It's about his companies. We just ignore that. But if he took that away from them too, what could happen? Pitchforks. George says, will be interesting to see what on the first day volume trades on day. Oh, should be huge, surely. Which is normally huge. Yeah, it should be huge. But that's trading, right? There'll be a lot of people buying and selling. There'll be traders in there. Definitely. Professional traders. Trying because it should be volatile, surely. Or it could just go straight up. Oh, who knows? Let's see. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? It's going to be very interesting. Like, I'm not excited about buying it, but I'm excited about watching it. Scott says institutional investors that were already in have placed orders for more shares. Thoughts on that? Yeah, well, we saw that BlackRock, 5 billion. I don't know. I mean, these institutions have traders as well, right? I think that's part of it, that they can see when there's volatility, that's when traders, and there's algorithms in there too. These days these even massive valuations can be highly volatile, especially with something like this. It's historic. Like, this is why I'm watching it, right? It's an AI bubble. It's just a massive, massive IPO. It's just historic times. It's going to be like, I think we'll look back on this in 10 years. Whatever happens in 10 years, we'll look back on this and say, what was going on there? It was just amazing. Like we do for, I don't know, the GFC and the dot-com bubble. It's been studied and studied, but still it rhymes. History rhymes. What is your price guess for the first day of trading? Oh, I'm not gonna guess. Ask if people, chat, give you a price. What's going to happen on the first day, and what's going to happen on the second day? It could. Who knows? Imagine if it goes to 3 trillion or something like that. It'd be crazy, crazy times. But it may crash. Who knows? There's a lot of skepticism out there. There has been a lot of press about it being overpriced as well. I don't think anybody thinks it's not overpriced. Only a few like Tesla influencers are saying that, and Chamath, who's done literally pretty much pump and dumps before, exiting those SPACs and leaving people holding the bag. But we will see. Musk is getting back to this. Musk is jacking up that demand. In a normal IPO, 90% of the shares are allocated to institutional investors, such as banks and insurance funds, and 10% are allocated to retail investors, reflecting market demand. SpaceX has instead opted for a 70-30 split, allocating 3 times the typical amount of shares to retail investors. This strongly suggests that professional investors have seen the artificial scarcity tactics and don't want to buy at the inflated price. So, despite offering an extremely constrained number of shares, SpaceX has to sell its wares to individual investors who are less likely to spot the ruse. Musk has been hyping up SpaceX for years in his cult of brain dead investors. Therefore, this split ratio also suggests that they expect demand from those who swallow Musk's constant lies and manipulation to be substantial. Yep, I would say so. These factors alone are enough to jack the price up to insane levels. SpaceX targeted an IPO price of 1.75 trillion. Well, that's market cap, not price. This then raised it to 2 trillion and later lowered it to 1.8 trillion. So yeah, I think, talking about what's going to happen, there's been so much talk of this that people are going to be watching, the share price in relation to the market cap. And if it goes to 2 trillion, I don't think anybody at this point, because of the hype, is going to be surprised if it goes to 2 trillion. But could it go higher than that? We'll have to see. Yep. So Ivan says it was worth remembering that SpaceX was supposed to do an IPO once they are on Mars. That's true. So Elon said years ago that he would not IPO SpaceX, just wasn't interested in doing that until they were established on Mars, not just to Mars, but I think established on Mars. So Will says, but I don't think people realize the true extent of that estimate. IPOs are typically valued using a revenue multiple, and this revenue multiple is for SpaceX just massive, where the overall value of the business is a multiple of its annual revenue, with the multiple being higher if the business is considered to have more growth potential. So this is the question. So a lot of retail investors and influencers is saying that growth potential is absolutely massive for SpaceX over time. The TAM of space is just unlimited and all this stuff. Most IPOs have a revenue multiple around 6. And famously, Facebook's IPO was astonishingly high at 11. Yes, I've mentioned this. I mean, 11, 10 is considered a high revenue multiple, right, for IPO. Now, SpaceX generated 18.7 billion in revenue in 2025, including X and XAI, which recently merged. That means that is targeting a revenue multiple of 96, not 6, 96. It's just, I mean, now that's changed because Google put in money, and like Elon has definitely been financial engineering to try and make that look better. Just before the IPO, fancy that. But still, the revenue multiple is just out of this world. Even if you believe, even if you believe all of SpaceX's BS, again, with more on that in a second, that is a totally fanciful and unjustifiable valuation. Fortunately, Musk has found a way to push it even further and pull practically all of us into its grift. So you get the idea here about the pump, and down here he talks about, well, the reality and the dump. I'm not going to read all this out. It's just way too long, but it's also a paid thing, so I don't want to just read it all back. Well, I'll read a little bit about the dump because I think we're all interested in that, right? What could be the dump here? Will SpaceX pay no dividends like Tesla? Phantom says, no, I don't think so. But that's okay. Like, I don't. Dividend paying out means, really, when companies do that, and Warren Buffett said that he doesn't, like Berkshire Hathaway's never paid a dividend on purpose, because if a company's paying out dividends, they're giving profits, giving cash out to investors, and that's good for income, like older people. And I'll probably do this one day, is to have an income, like for retirement. You kind of want dividends, but growth. If they're not paying out about dividends, that means they've got ideas to invest in. They're not out of ideas. But when companies become so big and so profitable, I'm thinking of Apple here, they start paying out a dividend because they just kind of run out of ideas. They've got, it's like some very successful companies have got so much money, they just can't invest it all. Like Warren Buffett can, but I think Berkshire Hathaway's got something like 400 billion in cash, and it's obvious that they're kind of waiting for a crash, and this is a bubble, I think. So they might not have to wait too much longer. Like in the financial crisis, he invested in Bank of America, and the banking sector went in and pretty much helped there and but it also got investors investments at pennies on the dollar. So he doesn't mind waiting. He invests in treasuries in the meantime. He has a lot of cash, and that's fine. And then when the market collapses, that's when he goes in. It's value investing, right? But you've got to be patient, and the FOMO is strong in most people. So the dump, let's see. As I said, I'm not going to read out all of Will's because that's unfair. It's a paid newsletter, and I do pay for it, but I'm not going to just read it all out. But I do appreciate what he says. The dump. Okay, so that's the pump. Now the alleged dump. There are standards in place to prevent insiders from using an IPO to dump their stock. Normally, insiders are not allowed to sell their shares for the first 180 days of trading. But guess what? This isn't the case for SpaceX. Insiders are allowed to sell 20% of their shares in for just 3 months. So maybe that gives an indication of the timeframes that'll go on here. I don't know. I mean, going into indexes in 2 weeks is, you can't see how that's not going to help. If the shares are selling for 30% above the IPO price at that time, the limit is raised to 30%. After that, there is a rolling schedule where they can sell the rest of their shares in stages up to 135 days post IPO. Musk is exempt from this policy and can't sell his shares for a year. There you go. But he can borrow money against that. It's going to be a trillionaire, though. I mean, it is on paper. I mean, he started saying he doesn't have a lot of cash to say, but a lot of cash to him. Not a lot of cash to him. It's still probably billions in cash, right? By the 3-month mark, the index fund Tsunami has a decent chance of pushing the value of SpaceX up 30% from its IPO up to 2.34 billion. That would mean insiders could offload 30% of their shares in just a few months' time. I'll read that again. That would mean insiders could offload 30% of their shares in just a few months' time. Well, we'll have to see what happens there. I think staff might be wanting to cash out. I mean, it's hard to work for Elon. You want to get some benefit from that, become rich from sticking it out. These insiders who include the likes of Google. Google doesn't care. I mean, really, they could hold on to it. They could not. They're just such a rich company that they if it goes to the moon, maybe they would. I don't know. And more of the most deranged and greedy venture capital firms on the planet own approximately 53% of SpaceX. Musk owns 42%. The public will own 5%. That is small. So they could legally, that's in bold if you're just listening to this, they could legally sell roughly 372 billion worth of SpaceX shares just 90 days out from the IPO. So that's a big chunk of the company. I mean, if they believed in it, they may not do that. But, like good investors and fund managers, I'm thinking of, like Monish Pabrai said, he talks a lot, and he knew Charlie Munger, and he is a good investor, I think. He said that he would only if it's a long-term investment, he only sells when if the price gets into a bubble and it becomes egregious meaning that it just does not make sense to hold it. Like, if it dumps, you could just buy it back later if you're really into it. And you got to pay tax, but if the price becomes so egregious that it just does not make sense to hold it, like that's when some of these would do it, right? They're just like the valuation is just the market price, the market valuation is just so insane that it just does not make sense to hold it, right? Or you just sell, like trim or sell half. And you look back at times like the dot-com bubble when Microsoft was trading at an insane multiple back then, it was a younger company, but still pretty established. Amazon wasn't as established, and Amazon dropped 93% from that. And then these companies took a decade to get back, to more than a decade in Microsoft's case, because they didn't go through difficult times. They were doing well, but the valuation was just so insane that it kind of wouldn't make sense to hold it for that decade. You could just sell it and then buy back 5 years later if if the company was still good. And there comes a point where it would not be sensible to hold on to it and go through that massive roller coaster ride. You could invest in something else that's cheap. And after that dot-com bubble burst, and you actually there were value investors that looked at that tech center, and then it did make sense because they could see that the profitability was there, that it was going to last, and you kind of look through the ashes of the bust and say, well, what's left? What is actually going to be good? And there were good companies, and some didn't even get started. That second wave, like Meta and Google. Google, I don't think IPO'd for. Speaking of Google, my phone woke up when I said that. So they legally. So yeah. Anyway, I'm a bit off track here, but that can be what happened. That the price gets so egregious that for some of these big investors, it doesn't make sense to hold on to it or all of it. The sell-off would repay these insiders many times over the amount they invested into SpaceX or X or XAI, but it would also utterly tank SpaceX's valuation, destroying the investment portfolios of retirement funds of millions. Yep, but do they care? No, they don't care, right? They don't care. They're not thinking about that, and we've seen that before in history. MAW says, I can't believe this has actually been allowed to happen. Well, Ed Zitron in that video said that he doesn't think that Anthropic and OpenAI should be allowed to IPO because they're not. Well, they're going to go into indexes too if they're $1 trillion market caps. But traditionally, you have to show profitability for a year, right? Good profitability, but that seems to be going out the window. Will it go out the window for them too? I really hope not. And don't think that Musk won't get involved just because his loans are locked up. Yeah, here we go. He is infamous for using his stock as collateral for loans to the tune of billions of dollars. And you can do that pretty much immediately after the IPO. This means that Musk could pull an astronomical amount of cash from the IPO without ever violating his lock-in period. Admittedly, we don't know that these are the immediate plans. The only way we should get an inkling of that is if the IPO included provisions to give them cover to make such a brash exit. Oh, wait, it does that too. Okay, so I'm not going to read any more of that. As I said, it's a paid newsletter, which I do pay for, but I do encourage you to have a look at Will Lockett's newsletter. Even he previews quite a lot of it. Even that is good to see, but I think he is onto something there for sure. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap this up now. We're heading up to 2 hours. There's a lot, I've got lots here that I could talk about, but I might do these live streams weekly. It is going to be exciting. I'll just run through some headlines here. Actually, how about that? That I found. This is going off in a different direction about Peter Thiel's JD Vance's real origin story. What else? Oh, this is about. I was going to talk about Peter Thiel, AI, Argentina, and the Antichrist. So Peter Thiel is getting into Argentina. Famously, he bought somewhere in New Zealand, got citizenship here, pretty much bought his way into here, and it was a sort of an out, like these oligarchs. If things go badly, we've talked about the pitchforks coming. I don't think Elon has got this plan. He's just too much in the US. That's why I think it could be difficult for him if it all goes badly. But people like Peter Thiel are looking to Argentina and places like that to escape if things go badly, or New Zealand and other places. And but they also want to set up these network states, they're calling them, that kind of have their own rules, have their own laws, where they can skirt regulation, and Argentina with Milei is one of those places. Peter Thiel flees to Argentina. I mean, he didn't flee. I mean, I wouldn't say he fled. Like he's just setting up there to go there and temporarily there, but I don't think they're fleeing unless they have to. And this is George Noble. This scheme is literally out of the Enron playbook. So in these bubble times, there's people. So George Noble was involved in the number one mutual fund in the US at one point. Nvidia is buying its own chips and calling it revenue, and your retirement accounts are secretly holding the bag. In January 2026, a special purpose vehicle called Valor Compute Infrastructure was created. So he's getting in deep into this, and this is about the circular financing and some of these really dodgy things that are going on behind the scenes that nobody seems to care about because it's all FOMO, right? AI, the biggest capital misallocation in history, he also says. Like, he's pretty detailed about this. I've been following it. I'm just running through a few headlines before we wrap up here at about the 2-hour mark. Musk's XAI SpaceX sued over pervasive and inescapable data center power plant noise. So, yes, there's a backlash against the data centers. So Scott says here, Peter could never be the biggest fish in the US pond. He is the biggest fish in the pond called South America. Yeah, I mean, other people have fled to South America at different times, to Argentina in particular, if you know what I mean, from Europe. I will certainly watch your lives if you decide to do them. Oh, thanks very much. Appreciate that. I'm thinking about doing it once a week. As I said, I get a bit bored doing those videos and not having much interaction except for the comments a day later. So I like it. And it's Friday for me. It's kind of, there's no editing after I do this. It's just, so that's appealing on a Friday. So I've got Friday afternoon to work on other things. Iran threatens Elon Musk companies in the Middle East. Yeah, somebody brought that up in the chat. Yes, that's news today. So I don't think it's going to affect the IPO, but that is interesting. SpaceX aims to launch orbital AI computing tests by the end of next year. Funny. Next year. FSD next year. I mean, it's sort of farcical at this point. It's amazing that Elon says that anymore. OpenAI mulls slashing prices as it competes with Anthropic. So is this going to become a commodity AI with this price, the price wars? I mean, that's a race to the bottom, right? And it's costing them a lot. The data centers. This is from the Wall Street Journal. So is that already starting where they're going to have to chop prices? I mean, again with the Uber, I said prices were with VCs were involved. The prices were cheap, but then they got jacked up later. That's generally what happens, right? It's happening with software as well. OpenAI prepares tender offer of $687 per share. Altman expects to go public within a year. So there's no date on that, but I don't know. I would expect it to be this. I bet you they come out with this year. All right, they've got more there, but I think that's enough for today, honestly. And we've talked through all the issues there, and it's going to be exciting from the point of view of the market spectacle. Absolutely, for sure. Like. It is. Look at this cartoon. If you weren't here earlier on, this seems like a cartoon to me that we look back on in decades and think that was crazy times, but we'll see. You Elon haters are blind and hate making money. Now, those are the comments that I've had for a while, and yep, good on you. Buying SpaceX at IPO is like buying Amazon in 1997. Oh, look, dude, no. That's not a comparison. And if you say that, okay, so buying Amazon in 1997, what happened? Amazon went down 93% in the dot-com bubble bust, and it took 10 years. If you bought it at that price, it took a decade to get back there. And how many people had actually held through that or just said, this is a bust and bought something else? I mean, if it's like that, that's what happened. And yes, the point there is there's time. If that happens, there's absolute time. Would you rather have bought Amazon during the dot-com bubble or in the absolute trough of the bust. And, when you could sift through the ashes and see what is working, Amazon was profitable, although they hid their profitability because they were reinvesting for growth. And if you read Jeff Bezos's letters, he said, this is about the long term. I don't care about showing profitability. And he always said that. Like, if you actually read that, and some people bought at the absolute depths and made a lot of money, that is true. Admit you are wrong, mate. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You've been saying about this Tesla for years. I mean, Tesla's the same price it was in November 2021. It hasn't really gone anywhere for 5 years. Anyway, thanks for your contribution, and maybe I'll be back this time next week. I think this is a good time. I like this time, as I said, Friday morning for me. So I appreciate everybody being here, even the haters or the criticism. I don't mind criticism. That's fine. I'm used to it, and I'm willing to push back on it. We'll see what happens over time. And whatever happens, this is going to be an absolute spectacle in market. And I do think it's a bubble. And this wave of IPOs happens, this is pretty typical of this kind of thing. And there's nobody's not saying that this isn't an absolute huge valuation on this. So it's going to be exciting from that point of view. And I will be back. You'll see my video, my daily videos definitely be talking about this. And I think I will come back next week depending on what's happening in my life. I went away for a couple of weeks and due to personal events, and that wasn't a vacation when I took 2 weeks off there. And so anyway, thanks for joining me today, and I will maybe do this about the same time next week, and I'll flag that, before that's happening, to schedule that. All right. Thanks for watching this, and I will see you in the next one, okay? Thanks. Bye-bye.